The great hall was bigger than 10 football fields put together. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats that rose up like a giant bowl around the center floor. Jake Morrison stood alone at the small human platform, looking up at all the creatures that wanted his people gone from the galaxy. The air felt thick and heavy. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He had been Earth's voice in this place for 12 years. He had made friends here. He had helped solve problems between different alien races. Now those same aliens wanted to throw humanity out of their space club. A tall blue creature with 4 arms stood up. Its name was Veltar, and it came from a world made of crystals and ice. When it spoke, its voice sounded like breaking glass. "Look at what the humans have done to their own world," Veltar said. The giant screens around the hall showed pictures of Earth: wars, pollution, dead forests, dirty oceans. They fight each other. They poison their own air and water. Now they want to bring this chaos to our peaceful galaxy. Jake watched the faces around him. Some looked sad, some looked angry, most looked afraid. The screens kept showing the worst parts of human history: the wars that killed millions, the cities covered in smoke, the animals that died because humans cut down their homes. Dr. Lisa Bennett sat in the visitor area high above the main floor. She was Earth's best expert on alien life. She had spent her whole career learning about other worlds and their people. Now she watched those same people vote to kick her species out of space. Lisa remembered when she first met the Zentari people. They were small, green creatures who lived in the trees of their jungle world. They had been so excited to learn about Earth's forests. They asked her hundreds of questions about oak trees and pine trees and how birds made their nests. Now their representative was raising his hand to vote against humanity. The Vorthon delegate stood next. The Vorthons looked like giant mantis, insects, but they were gentle plant eaters who loved art and music. Their world was covered in beautiful gardens and singing flowers. Their representative's voice buzzed like a bee when she spoke. "The humans are too young, too wild," she said. "They have not learned to live in peace with themselves. How can they live in peace with us? We have seen what happens when violent species join our community. Wars spread. Planets die. We cannot take this risk." Jake wanted to speak up. He wanted to tell them about all the good things humans had done, the hospitals they built, the science they shared, the problems they helped solve. But the rules said he could only speak at the end, after everyone else had their turn. Captain Rick Sullivan watched from his ship high above the space station. His vessel, the Earth Guardian, was one of 50 human ships waiting outside. Rick had commanded this ship for 20 years. He had fought pirates to protect alien cargo ships. He had rescued survivors from crashed vessels. He had followed every law and rule the Galactic Council made. Now those same aliens were calling him and his people dangerous. Rick's communication officer, a young woman named Sandy Cooper, turned to him with tears in her eyes. "Sir, the vote count is coming in. It's not looking good." On Rick's screen, numbers appeared as each species voted. Red meant they wanted humans gone. Green meant they wanted humans to stay. The red numbers grew bigger and bigger. 387 species voted red. Only 13 voted green. Back in the council hall, the final count appeared on every screen. The room became very quiet. Even the alien species that voted against humanity looked uncomfortable. Some looked down at their feet. Others whispered to each other. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Earth had 30 days to remove every human from non-human space. All the colonies would have to be abandoned. All the research stations would have to be shut down. All the trade deals would end. Millions of humans would have to pack up everything they owned and go home. The council leader, an ancient turtle-like being called Elder Thane, spoke in a slow, sad voice. "The vote has been counted. The result is final. Humanity has 30 standard days to withdraw from all Galactic Council territories." Jake was finally allowed to speak. The hall became quiet again. Everyone waited to hear what the human would say. Some expected him to beg. Some expected him to get angry. Some expected him to cry. Instead, Jake stood up straight and spoke in a clear, strong voice that carried through the huge hall. "You have made your choice," he said. You judge us for our wars, but you forget that we also know peace. You judge us for our mistakes, but you ignore how we learn from them. You call us dangerous, but we have bled and died protecting your ships, your people, your worlds." The hall stayed quiet. Even the alien reporters stopped taking notes. "You think casting us out will make you safer," Jake continued. "You think we will simply disappear into the dark and be forgotten. You are wrong. Humans don't give up, we don't quit, we don't fade away. You may force us to leave, but you have not seen the last of us. We will remember this day. We will remember who stood with us and who turned their backs on us. And we will survive." Jake picked up his papers and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent hall. As he reached the door, he turned back one more time. "History will judge which of us was really dangerous," he said. Then he walked out, leaving 400 alien species to think about what they had done. Above the station, Captain Rick Sullivan gave the order for all human ships to begin the long journey home. The exile had begun, but Jake Morrison's words echoed in every human heart. They would remember this day and they would make their stand. The space around Earth looked like a giant traffic jam. Thousands of ships waited in long lines to land at the busy spaceports. Every ship carried people coming home from the far corners of the galaxy, families who had lived on alien worlds for generations, scientists who had spent their lives studying distant stars, soldiers who had protected trade routes between species. Commander Amy Parker stood in the control tower at New York Spaceport, watching ship after ship land on the crowded runways. She had been awake for 3 days straight, coordinating the biggest rescue mission in human history. Coffee cups covered her desk. Her uniform was wrinkled and stained. "Commander, we have a problem," said Lieutenant Carl Davis, her second in command. "The colony ship from Kepler 442b is running low on fuel. They won't make it to Earth without stopping somewhere." Amy looked at her star map. Red dots showed all the places where humans lived or worked. Green dots showed friendly alien worlds where humans might be able to stop for fuel. But the green dots were disappearing one by one as alien governments closed their borders to human ships. "Tell them to head for the fuel depot at Titan," Amy said. "We'll send tanker ships to meet them halfway." On the other side of Earth, Dr. Helen Brooks was having a secret meeting in a deep underground bunker on the moon. The room was small and plain, with metal walls and harsh white lights. Around the table sat the smartest people from Earth's government, military, and science departments. General Pete Collins, Earth's top military commander, spread holographic star charts across the table. His hair had gone gray during his 40 years of service, but his eyes were still sharp and determined. "We can't just run home and hide," he said. "The aliens expect us to crawl back to Earth and stay there like beaten dogs. But humans don't work that way." Dr. Brooks pointed to a section of the galaxy map that showed mostly empty space. "The outer rim," she explained. "It's beyond the edge of the galaxy's main spiral. No major civilizations, no Galactic Council laws, and most importantly, no aliens telling us what we can and can't do." Colonel Steve Martinez, Earth's best strategic planner, shook his head. "It's a one-way trip, Helen. The distance is enormous. Once we go out there, we might never be able to come back." "Good," said General Collins with a hard smile. "Let them think we're gone forever. Let them forget about us while we build something new." Dr. Kevin Lee, who had spent 20 years learning how to turn dead rocks into living worlds, pulled up his own set of charts. "I've been studying the sensor data from our deep space probes. There are at least 50 worlds out there that we could make suitable for human life. Some already have water and breathable air. Others would need work, but we have the technology." Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, Nancy White was trying to solve an impossible puzzle. As the head of civilian evacuation, she had to figure out how to move 12 million humans from scattered colonies and stations across the galaxy. Her computer screens showed thousands of ships racing through space, all trying to reach safety before the 30-day deadline. "Ma'am, we have a situation," said her assistant, Bobby Turner. "The colony on Proxima Centauri B is refusing to leave. They say they were born there, and it's their home." Nancy rubbed her tired eyes. She understood how they felt. Many humans had lived their entire lives on alien worlds. Their children had never seen Earth. To them, those distant colonies were home, not this blue and green planet that their grandparents had left behind. "Put me through to their governor," Nancy said. "I'll talk to them." The face that appeared on her screen belonged to Martha Johnson, a woman in her 60s who had helped build the Proxima colony from nothing. Behind her, Nancy could see the red sky and rocky mountains of the alien world. "Martha, you know you can't stay," Nancy said gently. "The Galactic Council made it clear. Any humans found in their space after the deadline will be arrested or worse." "This is our home, Nancy," Martha replied. "My husband is buried here. My children grew up here. We've been good neighbors to everyone in this system. Why should we run away because some aliens on the other side of the galaxy are afraid of us?" Nancy felt her heart break a little. She had heard the same story from dozens of colony leaders, people who had built lives in communities far from Earth, people who had done nothing wrong except be human. "Because if you stay, you'll be alone out there with no help if something goes wrong," Nancy said. "Come with us to the Outer Rim. We'll build new homes together, better homes." Back on the moon, the secret planning meeting was getting more intense. General Collins had called in more experts. Dr. Patricia Hayes, who knew more about creating atmosphere than anyone alive, sat next to Frank Miller, the engineer who had designed most of Earth's space stations. "How long would it take to establish a basic colony?" Collins asked. Frank pulled up building plans on his tablet. "With prefab modules and automated construction systems, we could have a working settlement in 6 months. Full city infrastructure in 2 years. Dr. Hayes nodded. "I can have atmospheric processors ready to go. We could make a dead world breathable. In 18 months, maybe less if we push hard." "What about defenses?" asked Colonel Martinez. "If we're really going to disappear into the Outer Rim, we need to make sure no one can follow us and cause trouble." Admiral Tony Rodriguez, who commanded Earth's space fleet, leaned forward. "I've been thinking about that. What if we don't just hide? What if we build something the galaxy has never seen before?" Everyone looked at him. Rodriguez was known for being careful and traditional, not wild and crazy. "Think about it," he continued. "We've always had to follow Galactic Council rules about weapons, ship designs, genetic research, artificial intelligence. Out in the Outer Rim, there are no rules. We can build whatever we want." Dr. Brooks smiled for the first time in days. "No ethics committees, no safety regulations written by aliens who don't understand human biology. No limits on what we can achieve." General Collins stood up. "Then it's decided. We don't just evacuate to the Outer Rim. We build a new human civilization out there, one that's stronger, smarter, and more advanced than anything the galaxy has ever seen." As the meeting ended, the participants filed out with new purpose. They weren't planning a retreat anymore. They were planning the greatest human adventure in history. Above them, the evacuation continued. Ship after ship arrived at Earth's spaceports, carrying the displaced and the dispossessed. But now those refugees had something more than just hope. They had a plan. In the communication centers, coded messages went out to human colonies across the galaxy. The message was simple. "Don't go to Earth. Meet us at the edge of everything. We're going to build something amazing." The galaxy had voted to banish humanity, but humanity was about to turn that banishment into their greatest opportunity. 5 years had passed since the Great Exodus, and the outer rim of the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood at the huge window of New Geneva Station, watching hundreds of human ships move between the stars like busy worker bees. Where once there had been only empty space and dead rocks, now there were thriving worlds and massive space cities. The view still amazed him every day. 3 new planets glowed with the blue and green colors of worlds that could support human life. Dozens of space stations dotted the darkness, their lights twinkling like artificial stars. Mining ships moved between asteroid fields, gathering the materials needed to build even more incredible things. "Sir, the weekly production reports are in," said Commander Gary Webb, Tony's chief assistant. Gary was a young man who had been just a cadet when the Exodus began. Now he wore the uniform of a senior officer in humanity's new space fleet. Tony took the tablet and read the numbers. They still seemed impossible, even after 5 years of seeing them grow larger every month. Atmospheric Processor Station 7 completed terraforming of New Montana 3 weeks ahead of schedule, he read out loud. Food production on New Kansas is now 340% above projected levels. The shipyards at New Geneva completed 8 new vessels this month. On the planet humans had named New Texas, Carol Johnson walked through fields of crops that shouldn't have been able to grow on an alien world. The plants were taller and stronger than anything that grew on Earth. The grain was richer in protein and vitamins. The vegetables grew faster and lasted longer in storage. Carol was a farm girl from Iowa who had spent her whole life working with plants and soil. When the evacuation began, she had volunteered to help figure out how to feed millions of refugees in the Outer Rim. Now she was the chief agricultural engineer for 12 different worlds. "The new wheat strain is performing even better than we hoped," she told her assistant Mike Thompson as they walked between the golden stalks. "We can grow 3 crops per year instead of 1, and each crop produces twice as much grain as the old Earth varieties." The secret was in the genetic modifications. Without the Galactic Council's strict rules about biological research, human scientists had been free to experiment in ways that would have been illegal in Council space. They had taken the best parts of plants from a dozen different worlds and combined them to create supercrops that could grow almost anywhere. Dr. Patricia Hayes was having similar success with atmospheric engineering. She stood in the control room of Processor Station 5, watching as machines the size of skyscrapers slowly changed the air of a dead world into something humans could breathe. "Temperature is stabilizing at 22 degrees Celsius, reported her technician, Lisa Park. "Oxygen levels are at 19% and rising. We should have full atmospheric compatibility in another 6 weeks. Patricia smiled as she watched the numbers change on her screens. The old atmospheric processors that the Galactic Council had approved would have taken 20 years to do what her new machines could do in 18 months. But her designs used principles that Council scientists said were too dangerous to try. They were wrong, of course. The only thing dangerous about Patricia's machines was how quickly they could turn a dead rock into a garden world. In the research labs of New Geneva Station, Dr. Alan Foster was working on an even more controversial project. His laboratory was filled with tanks containing human volunteers who had agreed to let Alan experiment on improving their bodies. "The muscle density enhancement is working perfectly," Alan told his research partner, Dr. Janet Lewis. "Test subjects are showing 300% improvement in physical strength with no negative side effects. Reaction time is improved by 150%. Healing speed is up by 400%. Janet looked at the readings from their latest volunteer, a woman named Kelly Roberts who had been a construction worker before the Exodus. Kelly was now capable of lifting objects that would have required a machine before her enhancement. Her reflexes were faster than any human in recorded history. Small cuts and bruises healed in hours instead of days. "The neural enhancement package is ready for testing too," Janet added. "We could improve memory, processing speed, and learning ability by significant margins. These experiments would have caused riots in Galactic Council space. Most alien species believed that changing your body was wrong and dangerous. They preferred to stay exactly as nature had made them, even if that meant being weak and slow and dying young. Humans had no such concerns. If they could make themselves stronger, smarter, and healthier, why shouldn't they?" Captain Linda Torres commanded one of humanity's new warships, the Freedom's Edge. Her ship looked nothing like the vessels that had left Earth 5 years ago. It was sleeker, faster, and packed with weapons that Council engineers said were impossible to build. Linda stood on her bridge, watching her crew run practice drills. Every person on her ship had been enhanced in some way. Their reactions were faster, their thinking clearer, their bodies stronger. They could handle forces that would have killed unmodified humans. "Weapons test in 30 seconds, called her gunnery officer, Lieutenant Dan Miller. Dan had been enhanced with improved hand-eye coordination and spatial reasoning. He could hit targets that other gunners couldn't even see. The ship's main cannon fired, sending a beam of pure energy across space to strike a practice target asteroid. The rock simply disappeared, turned to vapor by the incredible power of human engineering. "Direct hit," Dan reported. "Target destroyed." Linda nodded with satisfaction. Her ship carried more firepower than an entire Galactic Council battle squadron, and she was just one captain in a fleet that now numbered in the thousands. Dr. Samantha Clark had solved a problem that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. Her cloaking technology could make entire fleets invisible to any known detection method. She stood in her lab watching a test ship fade from view like it had never existed. "The field is stable," reported her assistant, Engineer Bob Wilson. "Complete electromagnetic invisibility across all known scanning frequencies. Visual distortion is down to less than 0.01%. Samantha had combined human creativity with alien technology in ways that no council scientist had ever thought to try. The result was invisibility so perfect that human ships could sit right next to alien vessels without being detected. Intelligence reports came in through carefully hidden networks. The galaxy was starting to notice strange things happening near the outer rim. Ships would report mysterious energy signatures, then find nothing when they investigated. Trading vessels would claim to have been scanned by invisible ships. Mining operations would discover that asteroids had been stripped clean overnight, with no sign of who had taken the materials. The Galactic Council was becoming nervous. Some members were starting to ask questions about what had really happened to the humans. Had they really just disappeared? Or were they out there somewhere planning something? Back on New Geneva Station, Admiral Rodriguez met with the other leaders of humanity's new civilization. The conference room was filled with people who had accomplished the impossible. They had taken a scattered collection of refugees and turned them into the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen. "The time is coming," Admiral Rodriguez told the group. "Our scouts report increased alien activity near our borders. They're getting curious about what we've been doing out here." General Pete Collins, now the supreme military commander of all human forces, nodded grimly. "Let them come. They'll find out that the species they banished 5 years ago is gone. We're something new now. Something better." Dr. Helen Brooks, who had helped plan the exodus, stood up to address the group. "We've created 17 habitable worlds, built the most advanced space fleet in galactic history, and enhanced our own species in ways the Council never dreamed possible. We're not the same humans who were voted out of Council space." President Claire Morgan, who had been elected to lead the new human government, smiled at her colleagues. "Then I think it's time to remind the galaxy that we exist, and that we haven't forgotten how they treated us." Outside the station, the lights of human civilization stretched across the darkness like a constellation of hope and determination. The species that had been cast out in shame had forged themselves into something magnificent in the fires of exile. The galaxy had wanted humanity gone. Soon they would learn the difference between gone and transformed. Commander Beth Adams sat at her monitoring station on the edge of human space, watching the green dots move across her screen. 3 Galactic Council warships had been patrolling near the outer rim for 2 weeks, trying to figure out where the strange energy signals were coming from. "They're getting closer to our territory," her second-in-command, Lieutenant Ray Foster, warned as he studied the ship movements. "Should we warn them off?" Beth smiled coldly. "No, let them come. Captain Johnson's stealth squadron has been tracking them since they entered this sector. It's time our old friends learned what happened to the humans they threw away." The Council ships moved in a tight formation, their commanders confident in their advanced technology and superior firepower. They had no idea that Captain Roy Johnson's invisible fleet was already surrounding them like wolves circling prey. Roy watched the alien ships through his enhanced sensors. The Council vessels looked exactly the same as they had 7 years ago. Same designs, same weapons, same predictable tactics. Meanwhile, human technology had advanced by decades during their exile in the Outer Rim. "All ships, prepare for capture protocol," Roy whispered into his communicator. His voice was calm and steady, but inside he felt the anger that every human carried. The anger of being judged unfairly, the anger of being cast out, the anger of being forgotten. Dr. Samantha Clark's cloaking technology worked perfectly. The human ships moved into position around the Council patrol without being seen. Invisible nets of energy surrounded the alien vessels, ready to disable their engines and weapons in seconds. "Execute," Roy commanded. The alien crews barely had time to register what was happening. Their ships suddenly lost power. Their weapons went offline. Their engines died. Emergency lights flickered on as backup systems struggled to keep life support running. On the bridge of the lead council ship, Captain Zektar of the Andromedan Union stared at his dead control panels in shock. What happened? Where did this attack come from? His sensor officer, a nervous young Centauri named Velkan, checked his instruments frantically. "Sir, I'm not detecting any hostile ships. There's nothing out there." Then the human ships decloaked. Zektar's jaw dropped as 12 massive vessels appeared around his small patrol. The ships were sleek and deadly, covered in weapon arrays that could reduce his entire squadron to space dust in seconds. But what shocked him more was the symbol painted on their hulls, the blue and green circle of Earth. "This is Captain Johnson, of the Human Confederation Navy," a voice crackled over the communication system. "You are trespassing in human space. Prepare to be boarded." The alien crews found themselves prisoners on their own ships as human soldiers in advanced armor materialized. In their corridors, the humans moved with inhuman speed and precision, their enhanced bodies allowing them to react faster than any unmodified being could follow. Within hours, the 3 council ships were being towed toward New Geneva Station. Their crews sat in, holding cells, trying to understand how the primitive humans had become so powerful. Admiral Grace Thompson received the report in her command center. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold blue eyes that had seen too much war. When the exile began, she had been just a colonel. Now she commanded the most advanced military force in the galaxy. "Excellent work," she told Captain Johnson over the video link. "Begin Phase 2 of the operation." Phase 2 was Dr. Eric Turner's masterpiece. Eric had spent 5 years studying every alien species in the galaxy, learning their fears, their weaknesses, their deepest anxieties. Now he was ready to use that knowledge. The first raids were subtle. Council cargo ships would report being stopped by invisible vessels. Their crews would be questioned politely but thoroughly, then released with their memories slightly altered. All they would remember was a feeling of being watched by something dangerous. Mining stations in the outer sectors began reporting strange incidents. Workers would arrive in the morning to find their equipment moved or modified in ways that improved its performance. Security cameras would show nothing, but the improvements were clearly the work of advanced technology. Trade routes that had run safely for centuries suddenly became unreliable. Ships would lose communication for hours, then reappear with their crews unconscious and no memory of what had happened. Cargo manifests would be missing. Computer files would be copied. Nothing was stolen, but everything was examined. Lieutenant Colonel Mary Davis led the first direct confrontation. Her squadron intercepted a council science vessel that was studying the ruins of an old human research station. The alien ship, the Wisdom of Altair, carried a crew of Etherian scholars who had spent decades studying human culture. Mary's ship, the New Destiny, dropped its cloak right in front of the alien vessel. The Etherian captain, a being called Dr. Thelvan, nearly fainted when he saw the sleek human warship appear from nothing. "This is Colonel Davis of the Human Confederation," Mary announced over the communication channel. "You are studying human property without permission." Dr. Thelvan's voice shook as he replied. But humans were banished from the galaxy. This station has been abandoned for 7 years." "Nothing human is ever truly abandoned," Mary said with a smile that would have chilled the alien's blood if he could have seen it. "We remember everything. We forget nothing, and we protect what is ours." The science vessel's instruments detected weapon signatures from Mary's ship that were beyond anything in their databases. Energy levels that should have been impossible. Technologies that their best scientists said couldn't exist. "Tell your council," Mary continued, "that humanity sends its regards, and tell them that we have not forgotten how they treated us." After the human ship vanished again, Dr. Thelvan sat in his captain's chair for a long time, staring at the empty space where the impossible vessel had been. Then he sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council headquarters. The message was simple, but terrifying. "The humans are back, and they are not the same species we banished. Similar reports flooded into council space over the following months. Mysterious ships with impossible technology, humans who moved faster and thought quicker than should have been possible. Weapons that could destroy asteroids with single shots. Cloaking technology that made entire fleets invisible. But the most frightening reports came from the alien crews who had been captured and released. They spoke of humans who seemed almost like different species, stronger, faster, smarter, humans who looked at their former alien allies with cold calculation rather than the old eager-to-please attitude. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions. Representatives who had voted to banish humanity 7 years ago now sat in worried silence as intelligence reports painted a picture of a civilization that had evolved beyond recognition. Elder Thane, the ancient turtle-like being who had announced humanity's banishment, spoke to the assembled delegates with a trembling voice. "May have made a terrible mistake," he admitted. "We wanted to remove a dangerous species from our community. Instead, we may have created something far more dangerous." The blue crystal delegate Veltar, who had led the charge against humanity years before, now sat pale and shaking in his seat. How is this possible? How could they advance so quickly? The answer came from Dr. Kethmal, the Council's leading expert on human behavior. "We removed all restrictions on their development," she explained. "No ethics committees, no safety regulations, no limits on genetic modification or weapons research. We gave them complete freedom to become whatever they chose to become." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The species they had banished for being too dangerous had spent 7 years becoming infinitely more dangerous, and now they were making their presence known again. In the outer rim, Admiral Thompson smiled as she read the intelligence reports from Council space. Panic was spreading through alien governments. Trade was being disrupted. Military patrols were being doubled and tripled. The galaxy was finally paying attention to humanity again. But this time, they weren't looking down with contempt or fear. They were looking up with terror and respect. The first phase of humanity's return was complete. Soon it would be time for the second phase, the reckoning. The Great Council Hall looked exactly the same as it had 9 years ago when humanity was banished. The same curved walls rose up to the distant ceiling. The same seats held representatives from 400 alien species. But everything else had changed. This time, the human ships surrounding the station weren't small diplomatic vessels. They were massive warships that made the station's defenses look like children's toys. This time, the aliens weren't looking down at humanity with contempt. They were looking up with fear and grudging respect. President Claire Morgan walked slowly toward the center of the hall. She wore the simple blue uniform of the Human Confederation, with no fancy decorations or alien-style robes. Behind her walked Admiral Grace Thompson and General Paul Robinson, their faces calm but their eyes hard as steel. The alien delegates whispered nervously as the human leaders took their places. Many of the same beings who had voted for humanity's banishment were still in their seats, but they looked older now, worried. Some couldn't meet the humans' eyes. Claire looked up at the assembled representatives and began to speak. Her voice was clear and strong, carrying easily through the huge chamber. "9 years ago you cast us out," she said. "You called us dangerous, unpredictable, too violent to be part of your peaceful galaxy. You voted 387 to 13 to banish us from civilized space." The hall was completely quiet. Even the alien reporters had stopped taking notes. "You were right about one thing," Claire continued. "We were dangerous, but you made a critical mistake. You thought banishment would make that danger disappear. Instead, you gave us the freedom to become something far more dangerous than you ever imagined." Elder Thane, the ancient council leader, spoke up from his high seat. His voice was weak and shaky now. "What do you want from us, President Morgan?" Claire smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We want what you denied us 9 years ago. Recognition, respect, and a guarantee that no species will ever again be cast out simply for being different." The evidence of human advancement was displayed on screens throughout the hall. Ship designs that surpassed anything in council space, weapons that could destroy entire fleets, planets transformed from dead rocks to garden worlds in less than 2 years, technology that the galaxy's best scientists said was impossible. Fleet. Admiral Jack Harrison's armada filled the space outside the station. 200 ships, each one more advanced than the Council's finest vessels. The aliens could see them through the great windows, a reminder of what humanity had become during their exile. Dr. Janet Lewis stepped forward to present the scientific achievements. She was one of the humans who had been enhanced during the years in the Outer Rim. Her mind worked faster than any unmodified human, and her body was stronger and more resilient than nature had ever intended. "We have created 17 habitable worlds," she announced, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the hall. "We have eliminated genetic diseases that have plagued humanity for millennia. We have extended human lifespan by an average of 40 years. We have achieved things that your ethics committees said were impossible or immoral." Veltar, the blue crystal being who had led the charge for humanity's banishment, rose shakily to his feet. His 4 arms trembled as he spoke. "How do we know? You won't use these advances against us? How do we know you haven't become the monsters we feared you would?" General Robinson stepped forward. His face was scarred from years of building humanity's new civilization in the harsh environment of the Outer Rim. His enhanced body radiated strength and confidence. "Look around you," he said quietly. "We have weapons that could destroy every ship in this system. We have the power to turn your homeworlds into lifeless rocks. We could have taken revenge for the humiliation you put us through. Instead, we came here to talk." The alien delegates shifted nervously in their seats. The general's words were soft, but the threat behind them was clear. Dr. Michelle Taylor, humanity's new chief diplomat, presented the terms of the new agreement. She had been just a junior researcher when the banishment happened. Now she spoke. "For the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, the Human Confederation will return to galactic space," she announced. "But we return as equals, not as supplicants seeking approval. We will establish our own territories. We will maintain our own fleets. We will follow our own laws within our own space." "And if we refuse?" asked the Vorthan delegate, the mantis-like being whose people had voted for humanity's exile. Admiral Thompson answered that question. Her cold blue eyes swept across the assembled aliens like a weapon targeting its enemies. "Then you will learn what it means to have humanity as an enemy instead of an ally," she said simply. "We protected your trade routes for decades before the banishment. We fought pirates and raiders to keep your people safe. We shared our knowledge and resources freely. You threw that away when you cast us out." The negotiations took 3 days. Council members who had once dismissed humanity as primitive now found themselves agreeing to terms that would have been unthinkable before the exile. Human territory would be sovereign and independent. Human ships would have free passage through Council space. Human colonies would be protected by human law. Most importantly, the new Galactic Charter included protections against the arbitrary banishment of entire species. What had happened to humanity could never happen again. Ambassador Jake Morrison watched the final vote from the same platform where he had stood 9 years earlier. But this time, he wasn't alone. This time, he represented a civilization that the galaxy had learned to respect. The vote was unanimous. 400 species voted to accept humanity back into galactic space under the new terms. As the ceremony ended, Jake thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. The humiliation of banishment. The desperate exodus to the Outer Rim. The years of hard work and sacrifice to build something better. The careful planning of their return. The galaxy had voted to banish Earth, thinking they were getting rid of a dangerous problem. Instead, they had forged that problem into something far more formidable in the fires of exile and determination. President Morgan shook hands with Elder Thane as the new treaty was signed. The ancient alien's hand felt fragile in her enhanced grip. "We hope this will be the beginning of a new era of cooperation," Elder Thane said nervously. "It will be," Claire replied. "But it will be cooperation between equals. The days of humanity begging for acceptance are over forever." Outside the station, the human fleet began to move. Some ships headed back to the Outer Rim to continue the great work of building new worlds. Others spread out to establish the new human territories that the treaty had created. A few remained near the station, a quiet reminder of humanity's new power. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Casting out the different and the dangerous didn't make them disappear. It made them stronger. Humanity had not just returned to galactic civilization. They had returned as its newest superpower, forged in exile and tempered by the determination never to be dismissed again. The vote to banish Earth had indeed passed 9 years ago. But in making their stand, humanity had transformed that rejection into their greatest triumph. They had taken the galaxy's fear and scorn and alchemized it into respect and power. As the human ships vanished into hyperspace, heading for their new territories and their bright future, one thought echoed through the minds of every being who had witnessed their return. Never underestimate the species that refuses to give up. The age of human dominance had begun,